has been a founder, or is the founder, of Flashpoint Accelerator that Piyush just spoke of, along with many other companies. So many companies have gone through Flashpoint Accelerator. So our moderator also has been, is an esteemed professor at Georgia Tech, has also been an esteemed professor at Berkeley and Carnegie Mellon as well, has also been a part of at least, and correct me if I'm wrong, 8 successful startups. And with Flashpoint, started 5 years ago roughly with about a $1.2 million investment, and has grown that to well over I'll say 1.2 billion, it may be 1.5 billion now that by today. So let me introduce Merrick first. Merrick, if you would like to come up and introduce the panel, we'll take them through their slides.
Thank you very much, Chris. I don't think I need that. How are you all tonight? So we're going to now go around the room, and I want everybody to introduce themselves. No, I'm just kidding. It would take us too long. We're interested in who you are, but I don't think we have time for that. But we do have time to meet some of our panelists. The first one up, I think, is Mahesh, is that right? And so I'll take just 2 seconds and tell you a little bit about Flashpoint, since I'm standing here and you might not know something about it. And it was so nice to see Piyush. That's a complete surprise to me that Piyush would be here. Flashpoint is, some people say it's the oldest accelerator in Atlanta. Now I think we're not an accelerator. So there was a time when I thought what we were doing was taking startups and moving them from one state to a much better state, sometimes move them from a good state to kill them, because that's a better state. But a lot of times we move them forward. We've turned about a $1.2 million investment in 60 companies over 5 years into about a $1.2 billion portfolio. Looking back, I'm now convinced that what we were doing all along, and this will connect to what the innovation centers are doing, we were never actually moving projects forward. That was a fiction in our head. What we were doing was taking human beings that had projects and startups and giving them an ability to lead those projects in a new way. There was a type of leadership called a formative leadership, where they were trying to construct a new form in the world, and we were showing them how to do that. And so that's what we really do with Flashpoint. We've had a lot of success with it. Happy to tell you about it, but tonight is not about me. I'm the moderator. Tonight is about our panelists. And first up from Delta is Mahesh. So it's right here. So Mahesh. So please, I'm going to sit down. There's a short video. Thank you, Mahesh.
Good afternoon, everyone. When I was asked to put some slides, I thought just recently we finished 1 year of our Innovation Center 2 months ago. And so there was a video created, and I think video can speak far better than if I have to speak here. So let's roll the video and watch it together.
I realize, looking back, I've always been an innovator. I've always worked with projects with my dad in the backyard, fixing things, making cool toys. Innovation is the ability to be creative and take that creativity to positively affect people's lives.
The hangar is this idea of an innovation ecosystem. It's an ecosystem that includes Delta employees, it includes students and others from academia. It includes startups and entrepreneurs who have great business ideas that apply to the travel industry. And so we have built this ecosystem of contacts and resources that we tap into as new challenges arrive, as new opportunities arise.
When the Innovation Center started, it was mainly just to attract internal talent, to be able to have a centralized location where we can look at the ideas methodically. Now it has evolved to interacting with students who are going to question everything, and it gives us completely different perspective.
Here at the hangar, we are actively innovating and actively creating the future. And because of that, we get to see the future in all sorts of different ways. We get to see a future where we have voice automated check-in, or you check in with your biometrics.
We can cut down on the wait time in the queues by providing mobile devices to our agent to be able to serve our customer on the spot. We can identify a wayfinding feature in our Fly Delta app so customer knows how to go from one gate to another gate before they are landing.
We practice applied innovation, which means over 90% of the things we focus on are driven by the business. but we can't ignore new technologies, emerging and impact technologies. And so we're out studying those, researching them, and then thinking long-term about how to apply them to solve our business needs.
We're actively getting to impact the airline industry, and there's a lot of opportunity in the airline industry to be able to innovate, to be able to make the experience for both customers and employees better for everybody. It's been a very cool experience to be able to see exactly how important some of these changes are and actually be able to execute them properly.
The future for Delta is about anticipating our customers' needs, rapidly building solutions that address those needs, and building this continuous feedback loop where, as we get feedback, we're iterating, we're continuously improving to deliver a world-class customer experience.
Thank you for that, Mahesh. So I spend too much time in airports these days. I keep going to Paris for some reason because I think Delta keeps flying me through Paris. And I can never find any of the gates in Paris. Have you ever spent any time, anyone spend time in the Paris airport? The gates are like M237JQ, and that's where you're supposed to go to. And every single place you're supposed to go, it's supposed to make sense, but then they always have a human being standing there saying, where would you like to go? Then they have these kiosks that you're supposed to scan your tickets at, and none of them work. The last time I was there, which was just 2 weeks ago, there was a bank of elevators, and there were people stationed in front of each of the elevators to tell people that these are elevators, because they don't even look like elevators. It's a whole other world. So your wayfinding app, I think this could be very good if we could get our ways around in these airports. Okay, so next up, so I haven't met other people in the panel before, but I have met Ken before. I knew Ken when he was working at Ericsson. Ken is now, and I hesitate to say this, does he work for the CIA or is he the CIA? That's an important question at Dover Corporation. And so welcome, Ken, and glad to have you here.
Thanks, Merrick. I appreciate that very much. Yes, that is the funky title that I selected for myself, calling myself the Chief Idea Alchemist. And I know you're thinking, like, this guy's nuts. And
I can validate that for them if they need.
It's absolutely true. There's no doubt about that. So I always get the question, why? So I'll tell you really quickly. People may remember the false science of alchemy, which was the search for gold in every metal, right? The belief that if you transform and purified every metal, you would eventually turn them all into gold. And we know now that that was not true. At the time, they didn't know it, but they know now that it's not true. And out of that false science came the central science of chemistry. So it reminds me every day that every day we have to go through a lot of things that are false in order to find the things that are true. And I found that to be my job at Dover, which is to find the truth out of all the things that are false and looking for the things that are false and eliminating them. So that's kind of what I do. Yes, let's see, slide here, down here. So give you a little bit about what Dover is. How many of you have ever heard of Dover? A few people out there? How many of you think that your memory of us is that we make elevators? Exactly, yeah, we sold that business in 1999 to ThyssenKrupp. So we no longer do elevators, haven't done that in a long time, but we do a lot of things that you touch every day. We manufacture, we're an advanced manufacturing company with over 200 manufacturing locations around the world, 29,000 employees. And we build things that other companies use. So if you go into a supermarket in the Whole Foods or in Subway and you look behind the glass, we probably built the case. If you're looking at and you're pulling ice cream out of the freezer at your local Publix, that's us that's giving you that refrigeration. If you watch the garbage truck go down the street, that probably is something we built. You're pumping gas and you go home, unless you have an electric vehicle, and we have nothing to do with that. But there's all sorts of things that we make in the consumer industry, and we build it for other B2B plays. As Merrick mentioned there shortly, it doesn't mean that I'm completely devoid of knowledge about the wireless industry. I spent over a decade with Ericsson and started a group we called the Atlanta Idea Factory here in Atlanta, and recently left there to go join Dover to repeat the process. For them here, we're going to be right up the street at the Biltmore. We're building out our space now and focusing on incubation and ideation around the company. So lastly, I'll put this last slide up. This is the team. I'm not on there, but this is the other 4 people that are going to be on the team. I put this up there to let you know that none of these people have been hired yet. If you'd like to contact me later because you think you'd be a good fit for one of these roles, please let me know.
Do you have to look like the pictures?
Yes, that's our diversity picture. Yes, we all be looking people. You have to, actually, you can do any one of the roles as long as you look like one of the people. That's correct. But these are the types of things that we're looking for, and we look for a very diverse both type of group cognitively in the types of skills that you bring to the table and the types of work experiences that we're looking for as we put this together. That is one of our intentions, is to challenge the status quo and try to learn how to think about things differently. And I'm sure America has a lot to say about those sorts of things, but we'll let that go for later. All right? So good to be here. Great to see you again. For those of you I'm seeing for the second time, and for those of you I'm meeting, even better.
Great, Ken. Thanks. You'll have a chance to talk more about it. And for what it's worth, I no longer think about Dover as being an elevator company, but I think about it as the company that pumps gas into display cases at supermarkets and makes garbage trucks that take that mess away. That's where I am. That's where I am. Next up, Rachel. You don't have to laugh at the jokes, but it helps. Next up is Rachel Ford. And I don't know Rachel, but I know Techstars, and I know the people that are running managing directors at Techstars in Atlanta. They're a terrific group. Michael and Tyler. And by the way, I owe Tyler a call, which is, thank you for reminding me. And Rachel, I'm really looking forward to hearing from you. So welcome.
Excellent. Hi guys, good evening. Happy to be here. So I am the program manager at Techstars Atlanta, held in partnership with Cox Enterprises. Techstars is a worldwide network that helps entrepreneurs succeed, and we do that in 3 different ways. We have 3 big business units. The first is our startup program. So if you've ever heard of a startup week or a startup weekend, we hold 1,000 of those events each year across the world, and we like to say we span the life cycle of an entrepreneur from inspiration all the way to IPO. So the startup programs are really hitting that first part. I sit in the second business unit, the accelerator business unit. We have 30 accelerators across the world. Some of them are corporate partnerships, like what we have here in Atlanta. And as you can see behind me, we've invested in over 1,100 companies so far in the 10 years that we've had accelerator programs. And we currently have about $64 billion worth of market cap in companies that are now household names. And then the third business unit is our ventures arm, where we have about $125 million fund that solely exists to do follow-on funding in companies coming out of our accelerator programs. And we are going to show you a quick video about DigitalOcean, one of these companies in our portfolio, and their journey through Techstars. They've raised about $125 million to date.
The first company that I and my brother started, we had no mentors and no advisors, and we pretty much made every single mistake imaginable.
When we came to the Techstars program, we saw an entirely different way to approach the work and to build a company.
It's important to learn from those that have been there, done that. I think mentorship is probably one of the biggest takeaways from the Techstars experience.
And last, but not least of our panelists, from First Data, which I told him I think he spelled wrong, it's usually with a U, is Philip Jeffries. So Philip, welcome.
Hello. Good evening, everybody. My name is Phil Jeffries. I'm with the First Data Innovation Lab. And I wanted to bring this slide up real quick. And this is our leader. His name is Scott Sanchez. We've had an innovation lab for about 5 years, and this is his favorite slide that he has up. You may not be able to see it, but if you can't, it is a big squiggly line. It starts with a small line, has a big mess. It's a big tangle. And then it ends with a line. And we say that innovation is a journey. And we've been having this journey for about 5 years now. And what a lot of people, if I could leave you with 2 things, one of the first things I would want to leave you with is that this journey isn't always easy and it's not always straight. A lot of times when you're trying to find your way through, you'll get lost. You may even go behind where you really were. A lot of people want to say, can you build me a this? Can you build me a that? And they want you to stay at that straight line, but they're forgetting that big tangled mess. And innovation is really getting through that mess. Little quick slide about who First Data is, in case you haven't heard of us. We have 6 million business locations around the world. We service over 100 countries. And We have 37 countries with first data operations. We have about 24,000 people. And we process about 88 billion transactions globally and 2,800 per second. So this is some pictures of our lab. We're really big on Post-it notes. I think we take stock in Post-it notes. We have whiteboards everywhere. Some key things to note, a lot of companies say 70% of our space is for offices, 30% is for our offices, and 70% is for our staff. We're the opposite. We actually say 70% is for collaboration and meetings, and 30% is for our staff. We keep everybody really close together, and we have everything out there. So we're always out in our space. We're moving boards around, we're putting up prototypes, we're talking about things. Every surface that you see is writable. You see them writing on the walls, you see them writing on the windows. Everything in our lab is writable. And we do that on purpose. We want you to, if you have a thought, write it down. Lastly, the second thing that I would want to leave you with is our definition of innovation. And this is key for us. Our leader is a faculty member of the D School, which is where the design thinking model comes from at Stanford. And the way that the person that created Intuit and Quicken, he defined innovation as a create delightful experiences that people can't imagine, then could never imagine going back. And so when you think about some of the innovative things that you see, like the iPhone, that's something that you just can't imagine getting rid of now. And that's the way we see innovation, that's the way we define it. In order for us to get there, we do two things. We have our design thinking. We start with empathy, define, ideate, prototype, and test. And we just run through that. And the beauty is we actually use that with our staff, and we test that with our customers and their customers. We try to find what is the true need, what is the true goal of what you're trying to innovate. Because if you're just trying to create something for the sake of creating it, you may miss who's really going to use it and why they're getting it. The other is our values. First one is make awesome, continually reimagine, insight, change, inspire, and be inspired. Users first, real impact, real fast, be obnoxiously curious, learn, do, teach, and repeat. And I would focus that this is what really drives us on a day-to-day basis. And we try to reach this. We're not perfect, we make mistakes, but I think that's what really makes our group great. And I'm really happy to be part of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Phil. So let me invite the panelists to come up, and I'll just say, since you leave this slide up, I like this idea of being obnoxiously curious. I've worked in a lot of places where people are simply obnoxious. This is a better plan. So first, let's thank the panelists for being here, and thank you guys for being here. How many of you consider yourselves innovators? Are some of you innovators? How many of you work in innovation labs of some sort? How many of you work for these guys? Okay, good. Oh, okay. You may be afraid to ask questions then. I don't know. So let's get started. So one of the things that I can tell you that I see from my perch over here is that innovation labs are exploding everywhere. So it's almost become a necessary thing for corporations to find some sort of thing called an innovation lab. Those are different than R&D centers? Would you say that they're different? So at Delta, for example, do you have R&D centers as well as an innovation lab? How do they differ?
No, I would say that Delta also has so many different departments. So maybe there are certain departments that require some sort of R&D center, say for example, maintenance. So there is some specific area that some work has to happen. But as far as the innovation center is concerned, I see that it was so needed because in my day-to-day job, I always felt like I want to do something which is better than what we have been doing.
Yeah, I would say that's something we hear a lot when people go to do innovation. It's like, I want to work. So one of the things I hear from people is, I want to work in the innovation center. Is that actually a problem at Delta? Like, does everybody want to work at the innovation center? But it could mean that they don't want to work in their current jobs?
Not yet.
Yeah? Not yet?
But it could be. But what happened is that when you are working on your day job, when can you do something that is not constrained? And when you are having an innovation center with a handful of